James McIntosh, and today I'm joined alongside someone who I've become very good mates with since getting into non-league, having a wealth of experience in both playing and managing in non-league. I'm sure this guest will have some great stories. Recently, he has been best known for his time coaching Winchester, but hopefully he can be known for more after this episode, as today I'm joined with the legend himself, Craig Davis. Craig, first of all, it's a pleasure to have you on. Looking forward to the next hour ahead then.
Absolutely. Some intro, mate. I'll take legendary status. I don't think I'm quite that. But yeah, and I appreciate it. Now looking forward to chatting and yeah, lots of respect for what you're doing. I've said this to you before, what you do for non-league and people like yourselves that do that, I think is fantastic. So more than happy to spend some time and we'll have a bit of fun.
Well, Craig, I think the viewers and listeners watching at home, they fully understand why I called you a legend. A little bit later on, we're going to look at all of your career within the next hour or so. I think it should be a pretty cool hour. So if you want to hear any exclusive stories from Craigo, yeah, you're in for a real treat today. But you mentioned it there, Craig. You've always been a manager that's always been happy to speak with us, the media, the press, whether that's other non-league content creators or official journalists working with the BBC, etc. You've always been very transparent. Do you feel like today's a real good opportunity for fans to meet the real Craig Davis?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm very open with stuff, and wanting to make sure that people get their time and hear what's going on and get full honesty and stuff like that. So, like I say, I really respect all of the people that delivering content. When I was playing, I would have loved to have this sort of stuff. So, as a manager, I always think it's nice for people to understand what's going on and things like that. So, yeah, I don't think everybody fully understands the ins and outs of football management and what goes on and goes into it. So I do try and tell people what's happening, and grateful for outlets like yourself to enable us to do that.
Well, Craig, what better place to start with than this summer? I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people in the football business. I normally ask them how their summer's gone. It's normally the same one-worded answer: busy. Is that the same case with you?
Oh, mate, absolutely. Every season's the same. Everybody goes, "Oh, make sure you have a good break." I absolutely cannot stand this season because and even more so this year because we've had to have a bit of a rebuild with what's the unfortunate relegation, which we might touch on in a bit. Yeah, it's been manic, and unfortunately, I've always been really honest when I'm dealing with players from a transfer perspective. I tell people the truth of what we got, what money we've got, and what my plans are for them. And unfortunately, some managers in non-league, it's like monopoly money. They'll say stuff and promise the world, and they don't have to deliver that until the season starts. So tends to be a lot of people sign a lot of players at this point of time, and they never actually start the season with. Yeah, sometimes to my detriment, we speak to a lot of players, and they turn us down from a resources perspective, or they've been promised this, that, and the other from other clubs, and I just don't do that. So we have a lot of conversations at this time, and once the season starts, it feels like a bit of a break because at least you get to see the every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, rather than phone calls here and there and stuff like that. So yeah, can't wait for the season to start again, so I can have a rest basically.
Yeah, to be fair, I can totally understand that. I mean, looking at Winchester's social media channel, I would say it looks like you what said there, it looks like you're going through a huge transitional stage. Would you say this is one of the biggest transitional stages you've been in for a long time now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been here 8 years now. When I joined, there was only 3 players that remained from the previous season, so it was a complete rebuild. Funny enough, those 2 of those 3 are still with us now, which is great. So yeah, very similar to that, or probably not as bad as that. We've got a total of 11 players that have left the club from last year. We've replaced them with at least 8 or 9 new signings. Our young players of the young development work that's been going on within the club is enabling us to promote quite a few of our younger under 23s who were doing brilliant last season. So we've got that, and then we've got a few trialists and things like that. So it is a real rebuild, and it's one I'm excited about doing. I think we've had success in the past in that league that we've dropped down into. We were gutted to go down, but we've always been punching above our weight in that step 3. So hopefully drop down, rebuild, and come back stronger is the sort of the plan.
Well, definitely, Craig. We'll look at that more a little bit later in the episode, the current rebuild, what's going on. But before we do that, let's take it back to the very beginning of your football career. Just talk us through how you got into the game and your early football memories.
Oh, okay. So I was playing Sunday league football as a kid. A lot of players still are in and around the scene that I stumbled across at them. Glenn Howes is one who's just
Wow.
gone to you guys. He played against and with him as a kid. So anyway, finished my kids football career. Was playing for Bashley under 18s in the South West Counties League, it was called at the time, which is quite a good league. There's a lot of the sort of pro sides in and around the Southwest. We played against Cardiff. I was only a 15-year-old in the under 18s, so I was still at school essentially, and played quite well. And they asked me for a trial. I thought I was going to be going to college and moving on with my sort of work life from that perspective. And Cardiff asked me for a trial. Went up there in the August time for a week. Asked for another. Did quite well. Asked for another week. That's the second week there, and at the end of it, they offered me a 3-year contract, 2 years and a pro. So it was a sudden change of plan. I was sort of right. I'm going to be a PE teacher was my thought. As most kids seem to think, boys at my age that play football at sea or be a footballer. And so suddenly had to change plans and move to Cardiff as a 16-year-old. So it was a bit of a shock to the system, but that's where I sort of started, and I was at Cardiff for 3 years. Did well. I was captain of the youth team. Reserve. I was on the 23s then. It was called the reserve. Did well in the reserves. Got into the first team. Played some first team games there, and excuse me, things were going really, really well. Unfortunately, the club we got promoted at the time. They were League Two. Got promoted to League One in my first season. In the second season, third season, sorry, got relegated to down another league, and they got rid of a lot of their young pros, of which I was one. So came back with my tail between my legs, wondering, what the hell am I going to do now, sort of thing, and sort of fell into a recruitment job. So that's what I still do now. I'm in recruitment and things like that. But initially I did a bit of coaching and still had dreams and aspirations to get back into pro football, but fell into the non-league scene, and what a world that was. Very different world to where it is now, I can assure you. And went back to Bashley, played for Bashley for many years, and then Salisbury actually bought me remarkably for £15,000, which sounds like nothing, but I'm seeing sort of fees now that not many people pay 15 grand for a non-league player. So I was back then it's probably quite a lot of money, but I didn't really think about it at the time. So I went from Bashley to Salisbury, got a couple of promotions. We had 2 promotions there, which was good, and then left Salisbury, went back to Bashley. We got another promotion into the Southern Prem. We got 105 points or something ridiculous. So
Wow.
really, really good team. Richard Gillespie was like God then. He scored about what felt like about 50 goals or something ridiculous. So he did very well. So I was at Bashley. Left Bashley, went to Totten. Unfortunately, broke my leg there. I got FA Cup Player of the Round when I was there, which was funny enough, playing against Fleet Town, who I went on to play and manage for. Scored a hat-trick of penalties, which is a bit unheard of in an FA Cup game. So I won the FA Cup Player of the Round, which they used to do, which I thought was a really good touch. They used to do that, so I got like a VIP day at Everton Chelsea FA Cup final. That was, you walk on the pitch and all the FA Cup, all the rounds, players of the round, kind of was there, which was great. But yeah, I broke my leg through that season, and quite badly, and I didn't ever really actually. In fact, no, I didn't ever play for Totten again. Had a bit of I felt a little bit hard done by a couple of people involved at Totten at the time, which was kind of. Well, I had a bit of dislike for Totten for many years. I don't dislike him anymore now, but I was treated not great at that time. And then I went to Gosport, which Mr. Pike signed me and asked me to come. And at the time, you guys were Step 4. You'd been promoted from Step 5 a couple of years back, and he was trying to build a team to kick on, really. Yeah, he asked me to come in and be his captain, so I was there for 2 years. Loved it, loved the club. I've always loved the club, and not just saying it because I'm talking to you. I think it's a great club with excellent supporters, and whilst you've got big support there, they're not like idiots, if you know what I mean. There's some clubs I won't go on to them because I'll probably get pilloried for it by people, but there's some clubs with big fan bases that are full of idiots, cause problems everywhere, and I've never seen that from Gosport. And even as a manager now, then you still have good support, and it's never like that. So yeah, loved my time there. Left Gosport, went to Andover for a year under Andy Leader, who was an absolute character, real character. You don't get them like him anymore, that's for sure. Real kind of pinning people against the wall type guy, which couldn't do anymore, but he used to do that even then. And then went to Fleet, where I was playing as a captain there for a while, for 2 or 3 months, and the manager got the sack. Unfortunately, Steve Mellor, who's a good guy, I was gutted that happened. And they asked me to be a caretaker manager because I was captain, and just take it on. And we had we were Step 4, but we had like virtually nothing budget, zero budget really. I sort of did okay, and they asked me to stay on. I ended up staying there for 6 years. We stayed at Step 4 that whole time without much money, so we did really, really well. It was a tough stint. And then I left there when Winchester asked me to come, and I've been at Winchester since for 8 years. So yeah, that's kind of my checkered or potted history, however you want to call it. Seen quite a few things over those times, that's for sure.
Well, Craig, that was a fantastic rundown there. I mean, like you said, you've played for some key clubs. We'll look at each little segment a little bit more detail as we go along in the podcast. But I want to take you back to that first stint there. So you mentioned how you came through the ranks with Cardiff City there. What was that like, going to Cardiff City then as a youngster? Because the culture compared to Bashley, that must have been a huge juxtaposition.
Oh, mate, massively, yeah. I mean, the world then was very, very different to it is now from a professional football perspective, because I joined as it was a YTS the first 2 years. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold, so if I sound
Oh, no worries, no worries.
yeah, so at that time, and my year was the last year. They then moved to an academy where the lads had to go to college back and forth. We didn't do that. We were in the ground, and we did a day's, an afternoon's worth of kind of college work, where someone from the college would come in and we'd do a bit of work, and it was like just basically copy and pasting stuff. It couldn't even class it as learning anything, I must admit. And we'd have to do, getting in the mornings, do our jobs, so prepare the stuff for the pros, and then in the afternoons we would do jobs again to clean up and make sure everything was right, clean the boots and all that sort of stuff. I went from being at school, living that kind of lifestyle where everything was done for me. My mum and dad would make sure I was fed and cleaned and watered, basically, and I didn't have to think about anything. And then all of a sudden I was moved within a week to 2 weeks of trial. Bang, you're living with another family, because they put us in digs, and it was not a lovely family, I must admit. Really, I was really lucky. But without, your parents and loved ones and all that, and family. So it was really, really weird. And then doing all of these kind of jobs before you trained, and then you'd do those jobs, then you would train for 2 hours, and then you would do more jobs, and it was, it was a real kind of learning curve, steep learning curve, to be fair. It was, and if you didn't do the jobs, so lucky for me, they brought me in and said, right, you're going to be, they're called head boy. So I've kind of always been the captain places I've been. I guess I was destined to be a manager, I suppose. I think I'm just a bit of a control freak, probably, and that's what people would say. But I was called head boy, so that meant that I didn't have a job as such. I had to make sure all the jobs were done, and that was all my job was to do. And my boots I had to clean were the manager's boots, Frank Burrows, who went on to manage Pompey, really nice guy actually. Sadly, he got the sack before I got released because he I had a good relationship with him. So a bit of a shame that I might, who knows, could have been different if he'd stayed on. But anyway, so I would do his boots, and that was fine. But the other kind of YTs would have to do the players' boots. Now, if anyone failed to do the players' boots correctly, like, I don't know, there was a speck of mud on it, or I don't know, the laces weren't done correctly, the pros would just come into the boot room with a kind of wire brush and just smash them on their arms. And then cuts all up their arms, and honestly, mate, it was like a different world. We can't get away with it now from a safeguarding perspective and that sort of stuff. And I'm not saying it's the right thing to have done that, but I tell you what, you didn't have to learn to do things properly, with that going on. So it was a different world. One that got so much impact from that, and they take me on the next day. They sort of shin pads out, but they didn't have their shin pads. And the pros got that into the training room and said, right, you've got to get from the showers to the lights and lights on, because it's a little dark, and all the pros lined up in like a tunnel like that and just started dashing the kid as he was trying to run past. So he come out like battered and bruised. Different world, mate. Like, it just didn't. You couldn't get away with it now. But yeah, it was like I said, a steep learning curve for me. And yeah, I loved it. It was an amazing time, and I a lot of the things I learned at that time from a respect perspective, how to deal with seniors and people, respect for your kind of elders, respect for the sort of senior pros and that sort of stuff, making sure things were done right and correctly, and preparing yourself properly. I still maintain all of that now in my normal work life, and also at football. It set me up massively.
To be fair, in that sort of an academy like you're describing there, it sounds like a lot of the youngsters were learning more respect and morals, if anything, rather than what they learn today in academies, like learning all the technical side of the game. Do you think that has had a big impact on how players are today? If you look at the modern day Premier League player, you could pick out multiple where they just leave straight away wherever has the biggest cash. There's not really any loyalty anymore, I suppose, in football. Do you think that is massively different from the way you were brought up, and that has had a real consequence now?
Oh, 100%. I definitely think that. We did do obviously football training and the technical side and all that stuff. So I learnt loads of fundamentals from that. I remember Frank Burrows, who was the first team manager, used to get the pros lined up for like 10, 15 minutes before every training session, passing 5 yards back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, making sure your basics were good. And he used to say, you get this right 1,000 out of 1,000, you'll be a good player, son. He used to say it all the time. And you think now if you did that, players would be like, this is boring. I'm not going to do this. I'm not. So there absolutely is a big attitude shift because of that. If he said to me, go and run 2 miles right now, just in your boxer shorts, you'd be off. Like, you would do it. You would just do it. So I just Yeah, I think the world's changed, and that's not just the football world. And I don't want to get too political with it because I'm not, it's a minefield. But the world's changed a little bit where you can't ask people to do certain things because you don't know what's going on in their private lives and all that stuff. Then it was just like do it, and you would just crack on and do it and find a way. So yeah, I definitely think it's very different now to how it was then for sure.
One thing that isn't too different between the academies from then and today is the behind the scenes of academies. So you mentioned you were let go of mainly because of the financial reasons, because the club obviously couldn't really afford to keep that academy going. Did you feel at the time quite let down by the academy, not being let down on your own meritocracy, instead being let down because of the club and their financial goings?
Um, yeah, a little bit of that. I mean, I think I can't just say it was a money thing. You have to be honest enough to say that whoever didn't deem you good enough at that point. Yes, there's cultural reasons why certain people might not fit in to the style that the manager wants. I mean, the new manager came in was a bit more of an old school. Frank Burrows was a footballing manager, and the one that came in was more of a kind of old school, proper League Two, head it and kick it. And they I was never going to work for that. It's just not. It wasn't my game. So I missed out from that perspective. And unfortunately, because the hierarchy of kind of, I agree with you completely with your statement because you're not always very well looked after. Well, I must say the PFA looked after me quite a lot in terms of doing a few courses and things like that after I'd left, which was really, really good. But because of the fact Cardiff had relegated to League Two, there wasn't really much below that, if that makes sense. So
Hmm.
yeah, I could have had trials here and there, and when I came back and I was playing for Bashley, Bournemouth were really close to, asking me to go back there, and unfortunately Bashley didn't let me go for the trial, which was a bit of a shame. But there's so many every year that passes. There's a new batch of people coming along that are, probably younger, fitter, sharper than me at that time, and every year you're out of that kind of pro football is a year further away. So I do think once you drop out, most people need to bounce straight back in, and I think there is a better means for doing that now than there was then. If I'm honest, the exit trials and the different the content that you can now put out to sell yourself, and I wouldn't dream of going onto social media and putting a clip of me scoring 10 goals and making 50 passes and doing, I just couldn't dream of doing that. But it's like the norm now to have that kind of show reel of content that happens now. So it's a lot easier to market yourself now than it was then. You just had to write, you know, put a stamp on a letter. That's unheard of. Write something and then send it in a post. A little bit after carrier pigeon. Thankfully, I'm not that old, but yeah, it would be send a letter and wait for a response. And most times you wouldn't get a response. So that was it. That was the way it was then. So you had to really really try hard to do that and be good enough as well because you then you've got to get through those trials and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a different world now, mate, and it's done on a online is the place to be.
So you mentioned about how it's all done, a lot of it.
If you like it.
Exactly, because I thought one point was really interesting there about you looking at players, for example. A lot of players, so I've met through Gosport, like you said, a lot of them do really good show reels, and you would think, based off a lot of those show reels, they're good enough to go pro, when in reality, they're just picking out the main highlight bits, aren't they? Is that the same with Winchester though? So obviously you're on social media, you're on X. I'm not sure if you're on Instagram, TikTok, but like you said, there'd be loads of hundreds of videos. Have Winchester done quite a bit of recruitment off of social media then, from what you've seen of players' highlights and show reels?
Yes, we do. Fortunately, I've got a guy that I've known for years and years and years who does a lot of scouting and watches like every game under the sun, and he's like my eyes and ears, so he kind of knows everyone. And if if you can piece together a 3-minute highlight reel of good stuff, anyone could piece together a good highlight reel of stuff, I'm sure, with the amount of content that's out there. So it does help. You do look at it, and as I said, and it's well known, we haven't got the resources that other teams have got to go plucking from stellar football clubs. We do have to take people from lower leagues or young players from other step 2 or step 3 clubs, the younger ones and things like that. So we do have to do that, and I do watch them. No doubt I do watch them, but I take them all with a real pinch of salt, I must admit. And I then do, if it looks good, you think, oh yeah, he's got a bit about him or whatever. You think, right, what level is that clip? Because sometimes it could be, under 17, under 16s football, and you think, well, the level's not quite the same as what we're used to, or what they would need to play at. So you then do a bit of digging with someone you may know at that club. Let's say it was Aldershot, and you've got a contact at Aldershot. You can speak to him and say, oh, what was Joe Bloggs like? I've seen his clips and stuff. When you generally get a bit of honesty, and I've got a good circuit of people that I trust at different levels now. I don't really speak to loads and loads of managers, because everyone's got their own agenda. If I'm honest, you speak to the few that you really, really trust, and there's usually enough people that I could call upon to give me a feel about a player. And then I've got the lad Pete Millard, who's brilliant, who does all my scouting. And so between that, you get the clip, yes, read it, yes. Are they any good? Potentially. Okay, let's do some digging, and then you go from there. Otherwise, I'd have 3,000 people on trial with me every summer.
Well, exactly. I mean, I was looking at some of your stats as well from your time your first stint in non-league actually with Bashley. It's annoying you didn't have social media at that point, because I think you would have been able to put a good little show reel together. You scored 55 from 170 games in your first spell with Bashley. Many people I speak to who come on the podcast, they say after dropping out of academy football, then coming into non-league, they do struggle with it. They're not used to the physicality of it. But from where you played with Bashley beforehand, you probably knew non-league quite well. But I mean, that's some good going from midfield. That's sort of unheard of, isn't it?
Yeah, no, when I left Cardiff, I came back, and I was kind of green really to non-league. And yes, I'd seen pro football, and it was hard, and it was cutthroat, and it was, still quite kind of hard working, and like I said, people would have a right go at you if you didn't do things right, and it was really like intense. That's probably the word I'm striving for. But when I went into non-league, I was 20, and you think, oh, I'm good, I'm better than this. Look at me, check me out, sort of thing. And that's what tends to happen. You come down with a bit of a slight ego. I didn't really have an ego, but you think, oh, I'm better than this. I'm better than Bashley. And then quickly you find out, I'm not sure if I am actually as good as the people think I am. So they started me as a right wing back. So I played right wing back to start off with for a while. And I hated it. I just didn't want to play out there. I wanted to play centre midfield. And I was looking, I'm better than him. I'm better than him. I think it. I wouldn't say it. I was quite bad, really. Eventually they gave him a chance at central midfield. And yeah, I scored a lot of goals. I scored 1 in 3 goals or something like that. 1 in 3 games of goal from midfield. It's pretty good. So I'd command a decent bit of non-league money these days from that perspective. I remember when I came back though from Cardiff, I played right wing back, and this was like welcome to non-league, like proper, like hear these stories, welcome to non-league, son, sort of thing. We played away at Welling, and this Bashley team was a real men's team, like proper. And actually, it was full of Portsmouth lads. Darren Robson, one of the best players I've played with, who's now at Winchester, one of the coaches. They had a centre half there called Simon Ellie, who, great guy, love it. I loved him. I haven't seen him for years and years and years, but he was an absolute lunatic of a centre back, proper head case. on the pitch, lovely guy off the pitch, and he was playing right. We played a back three. I was playing right wing back. He was right at the centre back, and the ball got crossed in right on half time against Welling away, and the lad nipped in behind him, nearly scored, hit the post, didn't score. Anyway, he turns around to me and he's like, all the swear words under the sun, which I won't use, and he's like, "Why didn't you tell me that he was a man on?" I said, "Well." I said, I'm sorry. I said, "But why didn't you check your shoulder?" I said it to him. I said, "Why didn't you check your shoulder?" And he's like, "You what?" Anyway, half-time whistle goes, and we're walking off to the tunnel, and he's going, "I'm going to have you. I'm going to get in the change room, get in the change room." So we got in the change room. No word of a lie. He grabbed me like that, pinned me against the wall, and he's like,
Blimey.
"You'll never do that again." Absolutely crap myself, and anyway, I sort of didn't fold. So I said, "Look, sorry, I've learnt from it. I won't do it again," sort of thing. And anyway, game carried on, and we ended up winning. And after the game, he went, "Oh, well done, you. You'll go far. You didn't pat yourself. You can't, you didn't wilt under it, and you carried on," sort of thing. So I then, from then on, like he loved me, sort of thing. But yeah, and do you know what? I've never not said "man on" to anyone
Really?
like that again. It's just like, again, these sorts of things that you can't do now, but didn't half teach you a lesson. So that was little Bashley story for you. Yeah, I went at Bashley, got into midfield, and like kind of 1 in 3 goals from midfield, which was good. Yeah, absolutely. I've got a few little clips of things on YouTube and goals I've scored, but not very, very few. I wish there was stuff like that around now, and you can sort of crow about it a little bit more, because if you start saying, "Oh, look at me, I did this and I did that," you end up looking like big time and that. But yeah, the content isn't there to back me up. So I'm glad you got some stats on it anyway.
Well, Craig, forget the goals now. I want to try and get the camera of that little tunnel. I bet that would have been great to see. No doubt would have gone viral on social media.
That's madness.
But, I mean, it clearly worked, whatever he was saying. And you did eventually go far. I mean, a non-league player being brought by another non-league club in Salisbury for 15,000. That's unheard of. Even in today, that's still absolutely mental.
Yeah, it was a surprise. I mean, the first Salisbury at the time, well, the league got rejigged. So the first season we got promoted, it was, you had to finish in like the top 6 to get into what was technically step 3. Now they rejigged all the steps. So that was the first one. But they had done well in the FA Cup, and they got through to the first round proper. So they made loads of money. The bank rolled quite a lot of money. And my very first game for Salisbury was against Sheffield Wednesday away, because they beat
Wow.
Sheffield Wednesday at Hillsborough. So like I said, they've made loads of money. So I have to be honest, they paid over the odds. Bashley, took their opportunity to get that. But yeah, it was a massive amount of money. And not long after that, they raided Bashley again and signed Aaron Cook, who went on to play for Gosport as well. It was a bit of a legend at Gosport. So they made a lot of money out of Salisbury, Bashley that time, and it was tough really, because Salisbury's unforgiving fans, similar to Gosport, really really vociferous, and high numbers. And they were like, "God, what's this? What a waste of money! All this money." You see, like, there used to be message boards that were the kind of way of voicing your displeasure, and then issue they're like, "Oh, we're spending all this money, it's not worth it," la la la. And eventually they really liked me, because we had two promotions, and again I scored 30 odd goals in 100 games, something like that. They were great, and I loved my time there. It was great.
Yeah, because I was going to say, for the most part of your time at Salisbury, I would say, by the looks of the reviews online, you were a real fan favourite. But it just sort of faded out towards the end. How come this happened? And what was the relationship with, like, the manager after that?
Um, what can I say too much about this? I yeah, I had a great relationship with Nick Holmes, who was the manager. Loved Nick, and his his uh, tenure at the club slightly changed when they signed Tommy Widrington. So Tommy Widrington came in as
Oh,
player
yeah.
initially, and
Hmm.
then Tommy kind of got more and more power, and yeah, we did. He didn't take a shine to me. That was it. And like many others, didn't have the greatest relationship with him. So I my time was kind of ended around that time. So yeah, that was kind of it, really, mate. It was great. I mean, we got promoted on to what was the Conference South. Played, I think we won it easy, won it by miles, and we were sort of 20, 25 points clear. And Tommy came in, and I had a bit of an argument with him on the pitch, and I played every minute of every game, and then all of a sudden, Craig, you're out of the squad. I was not.
Wow.
It was like 7, 8 games to go. So it was, yeah, that was it, mate. He's not my favourite person.
Yeah, I could imagine after that. Do you think, had Tommy not joined Salisbury, you would have obviously kept your place most likely? Do you think that could have been a real stepping stone in for you personally kicking through the leagues?
Yeah, maybe. I think. Yeah, I said I was really well liked there, and all the supporters were like, "Why isn't Craig like involved?" Sort of thing. Um, I imagine I would have stayed there at least another couple of years, and then like I said, we'd gone into what was Conference South. Then they got
Hmm.
again not long after that. They got up to Conference Prem, and then overspent their means, I think, and the club disbanded, didn't it, and came back as what
Yeah.
it is now, Salisbury. Yeah, so it was like meteoric. It got promoted once when I was there, then promoted again, and then quickly after that promoted again, and I think it grew too quickly. But yeah, I sliding doors moments, aren't there? There's lots of things that happen.
Hmm.
You think, oh, if only Frank Burrows hadn't lost his job at Cardiff, if only Tommy hadn't, had a fallout with him. I'm happy with my lot, mate. I've enjoyed my time, and wherever I've gone after that, I've enjoyed. So yeah, I don't look back too much with bitterness, if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely. If anything, I think it worked out really well for you in the end because after Salisbury, I know you had very strong links to joining Dorchester, but in the end, you did reunite with Bashley again. And I suppose you quite well. This would have been a perfect mood for you because obviously you would have known the players, probably known a lot of the coaching staff still. So yeah, the best move possible at the time.
Yeah, no, I loved it. Okay, it was great to go back to Bashley. Ray Pinney was the chairman, who was a larger than life character. I think they paid a fee, but it was like undisclosed. It was like, I don't know, like 5 or something like that. It was a lot less. Um, which so they done a good deal really. They sold for 15 and got me back then, for a third of it. Went back there. We got, as I think I mentioned earlier, we got promoted. We won the league by,
Hmm.
I can't remember, you might have the stat, but it was like 100 and something points.
111 points. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And we won it in March. I think we won the league in March. We had um, guard of honours for about 12 games. It was crazy, crazy situation. Um, it was weird because the first game of the season we won like I think 4-3 or 5-3, a real tough game. Then we went to Poulton and won 1-0, like got backs to the wall and scraped the 1-0. And you think, oh, this league's going to be tough. And then from there we just went, we just ran 4s and 5s past everyone. It was mad. I mean, just got on the crest of a wave. And yeah, Gilly got 40 goals. Ryan Moss got a load of goals. With strong back four. Pete Castle at the back was good. Yeah, it was a really, really good team, strong team. I think I got 12, 13 goals, something like that. Again, so yeah, really enjoyed that, and we did really well. And then the next season, we got promoted to what is now Step 3 that Gosport are in, and we got to that same team. We didn't really change it, and that same team got to the playoffs. Um, and we lost to Team Bath. Team Bath were like a university team, but they started signing good players and stuff like that, and offering courses to people, to, like really good players. So they ended up having an unbelievable team. And we lost out to them in the playoffs, and they then folded or disbanded not long after that, a year or so after that. This team bar. So yes, we missed out on the playoffs then, and that next season is when I went to Totten.
I want to pick out one player you talked about a lot on that point, being Richard Gillespie. What was it like playing with him? Because he was a goal machine.
Oh God, yeah. Great lad for a start. I knew him growing up in various football teams as a kid and stuff like that. But then, he's a real quiet, unassuming lad. Rapid pace, like was so quick and deadly finisher. As a midfielder, I was always a midfielder, that kind of box to box type midfielder. That's another thing that people don't talk about anymore. Now you're either a 4, a 6, an 8, or a 10. It's like back then it was like box to box midfield. That was it, box to box. So I was a box to box midfielder, but someone who liked to pass the ball forwards. And any team that played a relatively high line, you just play it through, and it was so easy just to drop it over the top, and Gilly would be off of his jet heels and getting, and he was unbelievable. He was really good and scored. Mr. Goals, they call him. So that's not a bad nickname to have, is it?
Well, it's definitely not a bad nickname to have, considering your goal scoring record that season. I'm pretty sure you did the double century, so I mentioned there you had 111 points. I think you scored upwards of 100 goals. You said there you had won the league pretty early on. It would have been very easy for most teams, well, probably even looking at this league, Merthyr, after they were more or less heading for the title, they started to take their foot off the gas, started leaking out points. But this team, I mean, you definitely didn't do that. What do you think it was about this team, this Bashley side, that was so ruthless, even going into that following season?
I remember the last. I mean, it's a raw subject, that Merthyr one. They went to Basingstoke, lost 4-0 on the last day, which meant we went down.
Yeah.
I find that attitude poor. Really do. Forget the selfishness of us being disappointed. I just think it's poor. We went that Remember that last game. We went to Uxbridge, and they needed to win to get in the playoffs, and they were playing against us, and we had nothing to play for. It was the last day. It was 0-0 at half time. And I just remember some of the boys going, "Look, come on, let's stick it on these. We're going to beat these. Let's make sure their lives are misery." Real ruthless attitude. And second half, we went bang, bang, bang. Gilly got 4 goals in about literally 5 minutes, just killed them dead, and that was just what it was like. Really ruthless, and that's why we did what we did. And I remember the first when we won the league officially. I can't remember where it was against. I think it was Kingstonian away. I think it was someone like that. Somewhere in inner London we were playing. And then the next game we were home to Thatcham, who were like near the bottom, and we lost at home. We hadn't lost all season at home. We
Wow.
lost a bit after the Lord Mayor's show type thing, which I do understand sometimes it will happen. But we were never happening again, and we just went bang, 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 win after win after win, and like I say, got that record number of points. So yeah, it's just a bit of ruthlessness, I think.
What was it like winning the league then with Bashley? Because I'm pretty sure that would have been the first promotion, first bit of silverware you've really had in your career up until that point.
Actually, it was the second, because we won it at Salisbury the year before.
Oh, yeah.
Albeit because I was out of the squad the last 7 or 8 games, I didn't enjoy it. I hated it, and I was in the stand, and they grabbed me onto the pitch and stuff. But I didn't want to. It was tainted massively by that last 7 or 8 games. But we won that league, and then that season win at Bashley was amazing, because I'd been there as a kid. I'd been there as a non-league sort of player before Salisbury, and then again to go back afterwards. It was amazing. It was really good. It's such a special club. I love Bashley. It's one of the clubs I've always really loved time at, and it's a unique football club. So Village is like 200 something people that live there, and there's 350 people supporting them. You think, how does that doesn't even make any sense. Um, but yeah, it was a special time. It was really really good, and I loved it.
Well, after Bashley, you did mention, I think you joined AFC Totten, but AFC Totten, I want to pick out one moment. You mentioned about it when you were going through your summary. It was a strange game to say the least, because you were playing Fleet Town in the FA Cup. You got a hat trick of penalties.
Yeah,
I've never heard of that before, and I was reading some reports as well. Apparently, Tottenham weren't really that great from the set piece beforehand as well. So you take hold of the set piece. Yeah, just talk us through that game.
yeah, no, it was. Sure, funny enough, there's trophies actually. This is genuinely not meant, but that's probably my favourite trophy of the season.
Wow, wow.
It's quite heavy as well. I genuinely didn't mean to do that. Um, it was yeah, they hadn't been great from penalties, and I don't think I'd even taken one for them before. I took a few at Bashley, not many, but a few. And the first penalty we got it, and I was captain, so I was like, right, I'll take it. It's a big game. Um, Took it, scored, and we got another one, and I was like, oh god, what am I going to do here? And the keeper Dave, I've actually played with him, and I know him quite well now, and he hates me for this, but and he put the same corner, so we went the wrong way, two gone the wrong way, and the third one I was like, oh, what am I going to do? So I went the same corner again, and he dived for it.
Blimey.
So he was getting absolutely battered by his team. Beaten by the same penalty, three in a row, sort of thing. Um, so yeah, we won it 5-2 and got through, and lost in the next round, to the fourth qualifying round, to Grays, I think, which was as far as Tottenham had ever gone at the time. So it was a special day. Sadly, I sort of broke my leg not long after that, so it kind of ended my season. But yeah, I loved it. And the weird thing is that uh, Winchester over the last 2 or 3 years have been renowned for missing penalties. We've missed millions of
Mm.
penalties, to the point where Luke Kearney was taking our penalties because we'd missed 8 or 9 in a row. And there's, back in the day, I was scoring three in one game. So I just think, come on, guys, it's not that hard. Look, I can show you I scored three in one game. So yeah, it's all good fun, mate.
I was going to say, I think we need to sub you on for the rest of Winchester's penalties and have
Yeah,
the manager come on, take a few penalties. I've
yeah.
got to ask about that though. You said about Will Kearney taking penalties. Where on earth did that decision come from?
Um, Genuinely, we'd gone through every player in the team had missed a penalty over the course of 2 seasons, and well, what he's like. He likes himself out on pitch, which is kind of the beauty of it, really. And he was like, "Please, Gaffin, let me take the next one. Let me take the next one." And I was like, "Oh, I can't. No, I'm not going to let you. I'm not going to let you." Then we missed another penalty, and I was like, "Right, that's it. Next one, you're taking it." He was like, "Yeah, love it, love it, love it." It just so happens that the next game was Paul Town, one of his old teams who he didn't
Oh,
do
yeah.
well with, and we were 1-0 down, and he scored a penalty in the 94th minute or something, and so yeah, that was where it came from. It was my disdain for my players missing penalties constantly. I said, right, that's it. You can do the next one. That was it.
I was going to say, I don't think he actually missed a penalty when he was taking it for you guys, did he?
Yeah, he did. He did. It was in a cup game, so it was kind of not a big one. He missed it. Um, it was, yeah. I think it was at Tavistock, and their fans fuming at us.
Hmm.
Oh, that's so disrespectful. Just because it's little old us. And I was like, no, no. There's a few fans like me. I was like, no, no. He takes our penalties. It's not that. Um, so yeah, he missed that one, and then I came took them for us, and obviously had a decent record. So he missed two. He scored two on a rebound, but even our best penalty taker was missing penalties and scoring. That was our best way of scoring a penalty, was to bounce it off the keeper and score it. So yeah, no, it's a horrific record from penalties, which is weird considering I scored three in one game.
I was going to say, it's probably one of those things, though, in football where it is, I would imagine, quite hard to get good at if you're not already good at it, if it makes sense. Very hard to work on, with a lot of the time it just being down to the luck of the draw, I suppose.
Yeah, I think there's an element of luck with it. I think I agree with you. You can't practice it massively. You can practice your technique. Like I almost always would go bottom right, and the beauty of the no content or little content at the time, someone would have to have watched it to see I'd gone bottom right. So I used to just rattle it bottom right all the time, and people didn't used to cotton onto it. So most of mine were always scored there. So I knew that was my sort of stop penalty. Or it's more of a mentality thing. Like you say, you can't work on the pressure of taking a penalty. I mean, I remember taking a penalty for Fleet when we stayed up last day, and funny enough, it was against Totten. It was a 96th minute
Wow.
score. I scored it, and I've never had wobbly legs like it. I was a terrible penalty. I went standard bottom right, but my legs were wobbling all over the place, and because it was a big moment. So it's all kind of up there, really. Not bottling it basically, and I, I was an okay footballer, limited compared to some talented players that I've played with, but I'd back myself mentally to do stuff like that for sure.
Before we move on to the next point, just one last question about penalties, because it's playing on my mind now. Obviously, the modern day penalty, a very short run up, and also probably the hop, skip, and the jump. What do you think of that sort of penalty? I hate those sorts of penalties for me, but as a manager.
No, I hate it as well. I think as a manager, if someone did a fancy stupid penalty, a Panenka or something ridiculous, and they missed it, I'd be fuming, like really, really angry. I was a standard, walk back, look at the goal, smash it where I need to smash it, and
Mm,
I never blasted it with side foot, but hit it in the corners, and that's right for me. I think the kind of stutter one where they stop and they wait, and that
that's the
should
one.
be
Yeah.
outlawed. I think you used to you couldn't stop, and I think they should go back to that
Yeah.
where it's just run back, run forward, kick it.
To be fair, I 100% agree with you. I was watching the Nations League final the other night. You see all these pros doing it, and then they try and replicate it in non-league sometimes, and it just goes so wrong. We had a player called Ashley Yearwood. Yeah, it was not a good penalty. I think it might have been against Totten, but yeah, it's just giving back all nightmares from that. Could have done with your sort of penalty in that game. Might have helped with the playoff race. But going back to your time with Totten, I suppose when you joined the club, it was probably the start of a very long transitional era for the club. From when you were with the club, could you ever see the visions that they were prepared to go through in order to reach where they are now? And then on that point, are you surprised to see where they are now?
Yeah, I was there right at the start. So the last season that they were in our old ground, Testwood Park.
Mm.
You're probably too young for that, James, to be fair. But the old Totten, where they used to play, that was the last season I was there, and they were moving into what is their new stadium now. So it was right at the start of that vision, and it's kind of been an upward trajectory since then, really, and you could see it was coming. Um, and yeah, good luck to them, really. I think they've kind of they peaked and they were doing quite well, and then dropped off a little bit, and now a new injection of money's gone in there, and they're using it well, and full credit to them. There's some good people there for sure, and I'm pleased to see them doing well.
Well, Craig, I think it's the time of the podcast in which all the Gosport fans will be listening to right now and looking forward to, because next on the cards was joining Gosport Borough. So just tell us, how did this deal even come along?
Well, the ones that are listening will remember Alex Pike really, really well. Some of your older support,
Mm.
sure. No, it's not that long ago, I know, but he was. Have you met him many times? Sure, you have.
I've never met him before.
You know,
I'm hoping to get him on the podcast at some point,
um,
but I've heard a lot of good stories about
what
him.
a character! I still do. I think he's a great guy. He larger than life character for sure. Could sell ice to the Eskimos. As he did to me, really. He swooped in when I was not happy with what Tottenham were doing to me in terms of how I was being treated at that time, and spoke to me. I was back fit playing, and I said I had a bit of a fallout at Tottenham. Um, and he swooped in, kind of sold me the dream. Um, and yeah, I never looked back since then after that. So he said he wanted me to be captain. Again, Gosport were at the start of their kind of rise.
The golden era,
Step
yeah.
5, they'd had a year at step 4, didn't do particularly well. Um,
Mm.
and he was like, "Come on, we want to, kick this club on," sort of thing. And so I was excited by the sort of project and the idea of it all. And that was kind of where it came from initially.
Yeah, because I was going to say, you brushed upon it there. You were really at the start of Gosport's golden era, so I'm not sure if you would have been there when the time of Dan Wooden, Roy Williams, a lot of club legends, they were all joining the club. Could you see that vision straight away painted by Alex Pike?
Yeah, no, definitely. So yeah, my first season, Dan signed. Dan was a youngster then. Rory was quite young then as well, very young. Um, very much a left back then, and moved to more of a left winger, and
Mm.
back to left back. So he's kind of he was. You could see what a good player. In fact, both of them. You could see what great players they were. Woody was very much a winger then. He's obviously plays centre forward now and plays strong back to goal. And he was literally out wide, whiz it down the wing, crossing it in, scoring worldies. He was brilliant. And great lads as well. They've both of them got a lot of time from. I don't speak to them that much. I see them at Gosport games, obviously, still plying their trade and doing well, and always have a great little chat with them both. And brilliant lads, and been unbelievable for Gosport. And they should build a statue for the pair of them. I think. I was just saying. I think they've done a great job. So you could see instantly how good they were. I mean, Justin Bennett was there. Um, what a player! What a lad! It was a good team. Alex Ward was there, Joel Ward's brother. He was very very good. Um, Strong team, a really really strong team, and Alex was not exactly a coach. I wouldn't say. He'd done some training sessions, and you knew you were going to get blasted if he's got his tracksuit on, because all you ever saw him was oversized blazer. That's all he was ever wearing, his shirt and tie. So if you put some form of a t-shirt or a tracksuit on, you knew you were in trouble. Um, and yeah, Mick Catlin would do some of the coaching, and Tony Stairs. Tony was a good guy, good coach. I really like Tony actually. The one thing we always used to laugh about Tony is he would do a possession square where you'd have more goals than footballs. Like it was like right, 4 passes, and you pass it into that goal there, and there'd be another goal over there, and you think, how does this even like? He was renowned for it. It was quite funny. But he did most of the coaching, um, and Katz would do the other bits and pieces, and Alex was very much an old fashioned manager. Wouldn't do much. Well, he wouldn't do any coaching. I wouldn't say he knew the game inside out. If I'm honest, he knew the game, but like he wasn't a Pep Guardiola. He was a kind of mentality manager, and would get your mind right and all that sort of stuff.
Definitely, because it's interesting you describe Pike that way, because a lot of the guests I've had on before, so Dan, Rory, Justin, they all said a very similar thing, that obviously he didn't coach the way modern day managers probably do. So we got Pat and Joe at Paul Town, who I know pretty well, probably more focused on the technical side. Whereas where you were brought up in that sort of philosophy with Alex Pike, your time at Totten, Bashley, one word that always comes to mind, I'm thinking about, with all these old clubs of yours is they all seem to have a really good camaraderie. How important is a good camaraderie in a team? And do you always look for characters now when going out and signing players to ensure they do fit that sort of character? Not just being good, but also being good guys as well.
It's the biggest thing in the world, without a shadow of a doubt. So all the best teams I played in had the best team spirits. Now it's easy to say that because it's easier to win, to have good spirit when you're winning. It's harder when you're losing, but you actually need it more when you're in the tough times and the hard times. And yeah, team spirit is massive. I pride myself, or I've prided my team, both at Fleet and at Winchester, on being. Everyone will always say, "Oh, it's never easy going to Winchester. Their spirit's really good and they try really hard on that sort of stuff." And that's something that I've really kind of prided myself on. And you get it wrong sometimes. I think last season I got it wrong. A couple of players weren't quite what I wanted it to be. and that kind of had an impact on it. But in the main, having a good team spirit is important, and that Gosport team had really, really good team spirit. It was, and you know, when I left, in part due to work and a few bits and pieces why I left, it wasn't anything like other than that. You know, you could see the spirit was amazing, and that same group, a lot of them were the ones that got to the FA Trophy final and got up to what Conference South level they got to, didn't they? So it
Mm.
was largely the same players.
Well, exactly. And I think, like you said, it would have 100% rubbed off on the way you coach. But I think overall, looking back at your time at Gosport, probably short and sweet, but how would you describe personally your time with the borough?
Like I said, I loved it, mate. I made a lot of friends, speak to a lot of people, and every time I go back there, it's like a warm feeling. You go to some grounds, you think not too sure. Like, I go just back to
Mm.
Ssbury, and it's a different. It doesn't. I've never felt that kind of connection. I felt a real connection at Gosport, and I've always thought that. I've never had a bad word to say about them, or would never have anyone say a bad word about them either. It was a great club, and I loved it there. I mean, I remember one of my last. It's a little pikey story for you. One of my last games I was there, I knew I was kind of leaving. I was actually suspended for a game against Andover, who ended up going to play for briefly, and they lost to Andover. And the changing rooms are they're long and thin, aren't they? They're kind of longish and thin. But we
Yeah.
we lost, and we came in, and this was like a David Brent moment. They lost. Stood in the showers, sort of through. You could see the kind of long dressing room there, and everyone was sat lined up. And Pikey came in, and he got a chair. I could see his name. He got a chair, and he spun it round, like David Brent in The Office, and he
Yeah.
like round that like that, and we just sat there for. I mean, it must have been 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, just sat there, silence, pure silence, and I just thought, oh my god. And so I'm stood playing the game, and I just said something like, eventually, just said, "Come on, this wasn't good enough, lads. We've got to be better than that." And he was like, "Finally, someone's got the balls to." And then he went off on one for about 20 minutes. I still maintain if I hadn't said anything, we'd still be sat there now. He was not saying anything. I'll never ever forget that. That's a sort of a pikey story. He also the next session on the funny enough talking about the training, the next session on the Thursday. Bearing in mind we had a game on the Saturday, we turned up for training, and he's there with his whistle and a stopwatch, and his instead of an oversized jacket, it'd be a tracksuit, and he was like, "Right, I'm taking training," and we just got ran ragged, like line back, line back, line back, like hundreds of times. And it was just like, oh, character building is what he was, character building. But credit to him, because you'd still run for a brick wall for him, because he would sort of treat everybody like that, and then he would have quiet conversations with you, and he was a real good man manager from that perspective. But yeah, quite the character. I've not come up with against or managed by many characters more interesting than him, and a great guy, and done unbelievable at Gosport.
You mentioned about that moment where he was sitting in the chair. I suppose those individual lessons and those sorts of tactics, I suppose, you remember them. I'm sure all the Gosport players in that dressing room probably remember that moment. Did he do a lot of these little moments? Because I suppose they are probably the biggest teaching moments.
Yeah, he would. He would. Yeah, absolutely. He was a real character. You would travel somewhere on a mini bus or something like that, and we'd all be cramped up in it, and or you sometimes we had an overnight stay. We would stay somewhere, and it'd be some hostel-looking place on a long trip away, and you think, "Where's Pikey?" And he's in some five-star hotel down the road. He was like unbelievable character, but he would laugh it off. The way he would laugh it off and brush it off, and you know, he would stop you from moaning at ref. You wouldn't be allowed to say nothing to a ref, but he would be going at a ref like leave, like with his suit and tie on. He'd be traipsing after the ref and stuff. And you think, honestly, like what a character. And every time you see him now, if I've seen him briefly, he's like, "Dave, how you doing?" Like he kind of, his contact book must be like the biggest contact book ever. He knows everybody, and I wouldn't imagine there's many people that dislike him, even if you've been kind of wronged by him in some way or feel let down because he didn't play you or whatever over the years. People would, I bet they still think the world of him because he's a genuine non-league legend.
Well, he sounds awesome. I think he's definitely going to be a future guest for this podcast. Need to try and get him on somehow. But
I love it.
I think you would like that episode as well. Probably have a few good stories with you. But after this move with Gosport, I think it's fair to say he had a great time with Gosport. Up next, he did join Andover. Once again, probably a side which, I don't know, a bit of a short and sweet time, I suppose, with Andover.
Yeah, it was. I was working in Andover at the time, so it was literally a kind of work-life balance thing. They were in the league. They were in the same league as Gosport. They were struggling in that league, and Andy Leader, who's a guy I've loved for years, and he said, "Look, come and play for me for the rest of the season." And so I was there for about 3/4 of a season, um, and yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good. It was a poor team, I must say. It was a poor team. We actually got funny enough, we got a result against Gosport later in that season at Andover. Alex was fuming again. He's like, "Why are you playing for me, Dave? Are you playing for them, making sure that you get stuff in?" And I was like, "Oh, sorry, mate." Yeah, it was a short stint there, and that season, Andover, I think they folded, or again they dropped down several leagues, and they've never really come back since then. Sadly, so yeah, it was very brief.
Yeah, because I was going to say, they did filter through the league significantly. I'm pretty sure they're in Wessex League now, so definitely gone down. But after that, you moved to a team called Fleet Town. For me, looking at your time with Fleet Town, it was probably the time where you really did start getting into coaching, as well as playing, but more coaching, I would say this was the development of.
Yeah, yeah. So Andy Leader left Andover and went to Fleet, which is kind of why I went to Fleet. That was the link. And that, as I said, I came in. I was their captain. I was doing okay. They were never a big side. Step four. They'd had a good few seasons under Andy Sinton, and then he left. And they kind of become a low budget line, like a bottom few team. So I went and joined them. Was playing quite well for them. They got the sack, the pair of them, and they asked me to take it on, as I said. And I was only 30 at the time, 29, 30, so still young. Certainly wasn't, expecting to be a manager at that point. I thought I probably would do it at some point because I've always been a captain almost everywhere I'd been. Using those are the sort of people that tend to kind of be managers in the end. Yeah, so I did it, and I took to it like a bit of a duck to water. Really, I was player manager, so I played. I had to play. We were a poor team, we had unbelievable spirit. We stayed up on the basis of that. I got in some lads that loved playing for me, that have carried on playing for me for years. Ryan Price, Simba Malambo. These boys played with me back then, yeah, we stayed up every year, and it was I used some old school stuff that I learned from Pikey. We were a bit kind of down and dirty with what how we would do stuff. We didn't have the facility, so we would do circuit training in the clubhouse. We would do all sorts of weird random things that made a difference. I was like a bus driver. I'd travel around. I'd take a load up from sort of my area, Southampton to Fleet. Then I'd go around picking a couple of other lads up because they couldn't afford to get down there because we were paying them like £20 a week, things like that. It was it was a tough time, but I learned a lot from that. I learned an awful lot. So some of the stuff I used then, I use now at Winchester. We're not a big budget team, Winchester, but we were certainly more resourced than that Winchester team, and I still use some of the things I learned at that time. And I say we were battling relegation a lot. So over the last 2 or 3 years, we've done well. We've stayed up, but I was kind of accustomed to battling relegation because of that time at Fleet for 6 years. So and when I went to Winchester, we were battling to get promoted for the next 4 or 5 years, and we were doing really well. So I kind of done the top and the bottom piece in my management, which is kind of useful, and I found it useful anyway, because you have to manage people differently.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about having that relegation battle. I'll speak a bit about that when we speak about your time at Winchester. But the last 2 years, it's safe to say Fleet Town were definitely going through relegation battles non-stop. I think it was largely down to what was going on behind the scenes. Obviously, the club was having huge financial issues. Being a player and manager, you would have obviously had a great connection with all the lads involved, with the players, but you would have also had to have a good relationship with the board, I would imagine. How hard was it juggling what the board wanted with the players, particularly with a lot of the players, and I think even yourself not being paid?
Yeah, so it was hard. The chairman was a really good guy, Steve Cantle. Loved him. He did everything he could, and he was trying to give us a little bit more, and give us a coach at least to travel somewhere every so often. And he was trying to move things forward. We've kind of gone from perennial one place out of relegation, staying up skin of our teeth, to kind of mid-table and pushing mid-table. And I was like, that he knew I wanted more. Like he knew, I was coming towards the end of playing and I wanted to just manage. Sort of mid-30s by then. Unfortunately, Steve really unexpectedly died in the sort of October, November time. And even the little bit of money, the £400-500 budget that we had at that time, the club said we haven't got that, we can't pay that. So from then to the end of the season, they didn't pay anything. And fair credit to the lads, they all stayed and played for nothing. They were hardly getting anything, so it wasn't a big thing. But like literally, the principle of the fact they were getting nothing, and with sort of 4 or 5 games of the season to go, we were safe. We were 13th, 14th. That's when Winchester came in for me to say, look, will you come here? And I thought, well, this is an opportunity I'm going to have to take. Bigger club, better, resources and facilities. But yeah, it was tough. So like the years with Steve there, I knew kind of what it was about. They knew, staying up was kind of miracle stuff. So we would do that every year. But then when he sadly passed away, it was a real sad time. Not that there was, I wasn't blaming the board; they didn't have the money, but it was really really tough after he passed away. So in the next season, straight after I left, they went down. So you know, says it all really, I suppose.
Well, exactly, because I was looking at the stats there. So you mentioned, I'm pretty sure you left the club, then being 13th in the league. Also, I thought it was quite interesting. I'm pretty sure they made it to a cup final and a semi final when you left as well. So it looks like, from a neutral point of view, you left them in quite a good position. Did you get any stick for leaving the club?
Not from any of the sort of fans and anything like that. There's a couple of people. I was a bit disappointed. I went back there the next season, and the new management that were there started giving me like stick and stuff, like for no reason, saying, yeah, I was a bit tainted by that. But that's kind of water under the bridge now. And the people that were there when I was there knew the job that we did there, and yeah, I wish them well. They're sort of on the way back. They're still step 5, but they're kind of doing a bit better now, and they got a bit more money in there now, and they're having a go. So yeah, I left on really really good terms with them, but the new breed that came in tried to sort of taint it a little bit, I think. But other than that, it was fine, and I still know a few people there that come and watch our games, and great. So yeah, no, it's good.
So, during your time with Fleet Town, you obviously really grew as a manager. I think that's fair to say. So, you were attracting other offers from other teams, one being Winchester. This was obviously the next big team on your doorstep. But when you did join Winchester, they were going through another period of big transition, actually. They had just sacked the manager, Ian Saunders. When did you first hear about the opportunity of coming down and joining Winchester? Was it after or even before this announcement?
Well, it was a strange one because I'd spoke to Dave Malone and spoke to Ian Saunders about at the end of the season coming in and doing it with Ian. and I was all up for that and keen to do it. And we'd sort of talk about players that I'd bring in and that sort of stuff. And then they, I don't know, months. That was about a month before he got the sack. And then unfortunately, from then on, they lost every game and they lost really badly and they weren't doing very well. And the board at the time said, "Look, he's gone. He's going to get the sack." I didn't know it was happening, and he got the sack. And then Dave Malone, who was another good non-league character at the time, the director of football, he said, "Look, we've done this now. Will you do it on your own?" And I was like, "Oh, a bit surprised by it. I'll do it till the end of the season, and then we'll reassess it, sort of thing." Because I knew I was leaving Fleet anyway at the end of that season, and then we'd stayed up. I said, "Okay, let me go and see what it's about there." So I did it briefly. It was a poor team. Like, the team I took over was no, talk about spirit. There was no spirit there. And we didn't do particularly well. Didn't hardly won. I don't think we got one draw and hardly scored a goal. It was a tough time. And they said, "We can see what you're trying to do here. We want you to do it long term." And yeah, that was literally 8 years ago.
You mentioned one name there who I'm going to pick out, David Malone, because I'm pretty sure he was a coach that did coach you when you were at Bashley. They often say football is primarily about contacts, who you know, that's how you get up the footballing ladder. Was this a big case in for you joining Winchester and particularly staying on board with Winchester?
So he wasn't coach. He was he was sort of a football. He was kind of like a director of football type thing at Bashley. So he wasn't a coach by any means, but he was very much involved then. And I kind of stayed in touch with him after then. It's just what happens, isn't it? I always say, don't fall out with people because you don't know when you're going to need them again or whatever. So there's very few people that I've worked with or played for me or I've played for that I don't get on really, really well with, because burning bridges is the worst thing in the world. So I've rarely done that ever. I mentioned a couple of names here, but other than them, I definitely haven't fallen out with very many people. I've stayed in contact with him, and he was keen for me to do it. He kept saying, "Get away from Fleet, get away from Fleet." Every year he was like, "Come on, you need to move away from Fleet now. It's hard work. You can't keep keeping them up every year." And so I kind of knew he eventually it might happen. And I said he spoke to me. I spoke to Ian Saunders at the time. It was all set to happen in the summer. And they had a terrible run, and it counted against Ian at the time.
Did you ever speak to Ian after that moment? Did he feel a little bit aggrieved that you had taken the role without him?
No, I did speak to him. He was very good with me and said, "Look, because there was nothing underhand with it. I was all set to go, and I think he was just disappointed that it had happened. And he didn't really get back into management after that. I think he went to Portchester for a little while, and I don't think that went great. But his time at Petersfield was amazing. So that he's got that on his record. He got like 2-3 promotions there. So yeah, no, I still see him every so often. I don't think he was. I think he knew there was nothing I could. What could I do? It wasn't my fault. They lost heavily every game, whatever. So yeah.
Well, I have to be honest, Dave, though. I mean, it's nearly a decade since you have joined Winchester, but in 2018, there were strong links with Winchester appointing a different manager. I'm not sure if you saw on social media, but a very famous footballer, World Cup winner, and now Champions League winner, Ousmane Dembele, he did take control of Winchester City via the game Football Manager. I'm pretty sure he did pretty well with Football Manager in the well with Winchester anyway. I think he may have taken him up to the Premier League. I don't suppose you've ever had any talks with getting Ousmane down to try and play for Winchester.
Yeah, so it was funny because they hit the news, didn't it? And there was quite a few articles about, particularly in France. So we were really famous in France for a little while. I had loads of Winchester City lists. I had interviews that they were, translated from English to French and stuff like that. So it's quite funny. and he actually reached out and did some texts to us to say good luck for certain games and stuff like that. So it was all
Wow.
yeah, it was quite good fun. We were hoping, we kept desperately hoping that you'd come and visit us one day and we could make some publicity out of it. But yeah, we milked it for all it was worth at the time. But yeah, it did hit the news a little bit, which was quite funny.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet you became a little bit of a celebrity in France and overnight.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, Usman's taking my job, so yeah, not happy with him. But what a player he's turned into being, by the way. He's flying now, isn't he?
I was going to say, I definitely wouldn't mind seeing him come down to non-league, have a few games with Winchester. I mean, that would be an extraordinary story. But I mean, to be fair, in your 2020 period, or 2022 period, should I say, I mean, Winchester, you didn't have a bad little period at all. That was the year, well, probably the first year after COVID, you were really gunning down for a playoff place. Up until that point, there was a few times where you got very close to getting to the playoffs, just narrowly avoiding it. But when you did make it to the playoffs this season against, I think it was Cirencester in 2022, the semi-final, was there more trepidation going into that semi-final because you had never reached it before, or would you say more excitement?
Oh, really excited. I mean, we'd been knocking on the door, like you said. In the first season I was there, that ended that season. They were 14th, and this first season we were 11th. My first season we were 11th. It tailed off at the end. And the next season we were 6th. We missed out on the playoffs by a point on the last day, which was a shame. Then we had 2 seasons where we were 4th, um, and it got stopped because of COVID. The 2 seasons, so we were well set to, so we were banging on the door the whole time. And then this the final season that we got promoted, again we were 4th, and played against Cirencester, who were 3rd away on the Tuesday. I don't know. I'm a real pessimist. I do this secretly. I'll tell everyone. I always think we're going to win every game, so I'm just mentally preparing myself for it. But for whatever reason, that game, I just thought we're going to win this comfortable. I just knew we were going to win it, and it was just perfection of a game. Like we won 4-1. You don't often go away and win 4-1 in any game, let alone a playoff game. We just rolled them over, and they're a good team, real good team. We battered them 4-1, and then we had the final against Bristol Manor Farm, and Bristol had beaten Frome, so we ended up having home advantage for the final, which was great, like unexpected. And again, it's just like we're going to beat these comfortable. We smashed them 4-1 as well, so we won 4-1, 4-1. Got promoted, which was I can't imagine many teams have won 4-1 twice in the playoffs to get promoted. I can't imagine that's happened very often.
Do you think this showed a testament of how good Winchester really were that season?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, we were knocking on the door for 3-4 years. If it wasn't for COVID, I think we'd have gone up a year or 2 before that. So yeah, it did show that, and yeah, we were really, really pleased. And unfortunately, similar actually to this year, we lost loads of players. We got promoted and lost loads of players. They all kind of, people were swooping in. They knew we weren't paying very much, and we had loads of players taken from us. Dorchester took 3 or 4 players. Bobner took 2 players. I think I can't remember the other went to Gosport as well. Actually, I think we lost loads of players. Yeah, Max Smith went to Gosport in summer, and then he come back. So yeah, we lost a load of players at that time, but yeah, we were deserved, winners of that playoffs for sure.
You mentioned Max Smith there. I'm pretty sure he was the person who got the winner, I'm pretty sure, in the playoff final, made it 4-1. I was watching some of the videos of that final goal. It looked like it was just fully jubilation at the Winchester City Stadium. After that goal, it looked like there was a little bit of a mini pitch invasion. But when that full-time whistle went, yeah, just talk me through the memories of that. Because I would imagine that would have been the first pitch invasion of your career as well.
Yeah. Salisbury did it a couple of times, but not to that level. It was amazing. There were so many people down there. I think officially it said it was like 1,100, but there seemed like way more than that, if I'm honest. Piled in, and the sheer force of them behind the goal knocked the fence over, so they fell over and
Yeah.
kind of piled onto the pitch. I remember because we were 4-1 up, and I went running on from the side. And I was like, get off! I was like ushering them off because I didn't want them to, abandon the game or something. So I was like pushing the fans to get them off and finish the game in the
Yeah.
last couple of minutes. And then when it ended, yeah, it was amazing to see. The best, without doubt, the best feeling I've ever had in football. To get promoted as a player is amazing, but as a manager, it's the best feeling in the world. If we win a game throughout, we prepare for a game and train and stuff, and we win a game in the middle of the season, as soon as it finishes at 5 o'clock, I'll enjoy it for about 20 minutes. Then I'm like, right, next day, I never can enjoy it, right? That's just me. I'm just a nutcase for that sort of stuff. But that kind of feeling at that time was like, we're promoted. It's like all the relief and the, euphoria and all that sort of stuff was incredible. And it was. I'll never forget that. It was amazing.
I bet the celebrations after the game were immense with the fans.
It was brilliant. It was so good. And that core of players I've still got now, and that relationship that they've got with those fans is amazing. They're great fans, Winchester. They're not massive in numbers, but the loyalty that they show, they're really behind us. So we've got a special bond with them supporters, and some of it's down to that. It's the furthest the club's ever been. They've never been into the Southern Prem, anywhere near it. So, it was a big journey, and that's why kind of dropping down. Yes, we're all gutted, but we've been a Hampshire League, Wessex League club for most of the time, so it's not. Listen, it bruised me, and I'm absolutely devastated about it. But we're, as a club, we're not like world's ending type thing. Weymouth dropping down into the Southern Prem is like, what? How's that even feasible? Things like Havant playing in the Southern Prem should never be playing Southern Prem. So it we're realistic what we are as a football club, basically.
Yeah, because I think it was very interesting when you did get promoted to the Southern Premier. It seemed like Winchester, obviously you don't have the biggest budget in the world. I think a lot of fans know that. But rather than signing too many players, luckily you had a great core of players, so you were taking them into the following season. But it looked like the club was really starting to spend big off the pitch. Well, actually, if anything, on the pitch with the new Astro, I think they might have brought in a new stand. You mentioned your time at AFC Totten, how they had great visions of trying to develop the club. Gosport, you were at the start of their golden era. You've been at all these clubs in the past where they've gone under huge development. Looking at that time, when you did get promotion with Winchester, did you immediately signal to the chairman, the board of directors, that you wanted the same progress and you wanted to try and grow the club as much as possible off the field as well as on it?
Again, we know where we are as a football club. We're never going to be able to compete with those teams. So, it's only this season that we've got the Astro pitch, and I knew they've been pushing and pushing and pushing for it for like 5-6 years. And without that, we were never going to be able to even come close to competing. So we kind of hung on in there for the last few years, and then obviously this season it's gone in at kind of October time. So that had a real impact on our season because we had to start the season in Basingstoke. We didn't really have any support at all for the first few months the season. And, now we've got the pitch in there, but we won't really start seeing the benefits of that for another year or two. So it's going in the right direction. We've got a new stand. We've got the clubhouse being done. Everything's happening there. It's very much at the start of the journey for us. We've dropped down a league. We're gutted about that, but it's probably not the worst thing in the world for us to, rebuild again and push the club forwards with all the stuff that's going on to improve the facilities. The pitch is unbelievable. It's the best 3G pitch in the league by miles. Everyone will say that. But around it, it's not great. It's the clubhouse, the change rooms, and all that. We'd admit that. So all those improvements are happening at the right time, and hopefully, we'll look to bounce back this year. But whenever we can, as the club will, with or without me, we'll bounce back at some point. And they'll be in a better position to compete then, I think.
Nobody ever wants to be relegated from the Southern Premier, but Winchester obviously did last season. But judging by what you said there, Do you feel like, trying to look optimistically on it, it's taken one step back to take two forward now?
1,000,000%. I think it's very easy to say that now in sort of hindsight. We'd have really, really struggled this year in the Southern Prem. I'm sure we'd have competed and done well again, but looking at the money being spent, we cannot come
Hmm.
close to competing with that. So yeah, take a step back. Let's improve the facilities. Let's start reaping the money and the rewards and the finances from the pitch will generate, but it takes time. And then let's see, like you say, one back for two forwards for sure.
Obviously, last season and now the start of this season, I suppose after that final whistle went against Taunton and you decided to get relegation, I'm guessing you probably knew a lot of the group of players would be leaving, some obviously staying. What did you actually say after the game, that game against Taunton, to the lads? Were you trying to keep it optimistic? Did you already have a sense of an idea of who might be staying or going? I suppose it's also probably one of the hardest team talks you've ever had to
It
conduct.
was hard because, we set them a target. We said we needed 18 points with, I think 10 games to go, something like that. We needed 18 points. We ended up getting 16 points. So I was bang on with the prediction. And we knocked the door down to try and score against Taunton. So they tried absolutely everything. So I couldn't have asked more of that group of players at that time on that day. So we didn't get relegated because of drawing against Taunton. So why am I going to go in and blast them and have a go at them or whatever? And I didn't. It was quite positive. Um, we knew that there'd be players that would want to go and move on, and obviously that's happened with a few. We've probably got 11 players that have gone out the door, and some of them were loan players, so that was expected, and some of them wanted to play step three and stay playing at step three, and I knew that there'd be others that would say, right, no, I'm staying because I want to get us back to where we're at. So none of the players that have left I'm overly surprised about, if I'm honest, and none of them have left with me unhappy with them moving on or anything like that. Same thing, I'm grateful for the work that they've done for us, and you know been paid less than they could have earned elsewhere for however long. Go and make your money and play the level you want to play at. That's absolutely good with me, and I appreciate everyone that does anything for me for sure.
I would suppose it would have probably been quite a hard conversation, perhaps, with the board. What did you say after the relegation? Did you know immediately that you were going to be safe regardless of what happened?
Yeah, so the club had asked me to sign a contract or renew a contract in the sort of January time when we were in the relegation zone. So they were like, look, you know, you got us promoted. If the worst comes to the worst, you go down. You'll be the best person to get us up anyway. So I knew that they wanted me regardless, and we pulled out some unbelievable results in the previous couple of weeks. We'd gone to Havant not long ago and won 1-0. We'd gone to Hungerford and won 1-0. We beat
Mm.
Chertsey. We had some great results in the run up to it. So there was no kind of down in tools of any player. The players were all playing really hard and trying their absolute hardest for us. So I don't think they thought we could have asked more. I don't think I could have asked much more. Most of the players. So we kind of went down, licked our wounds quickly, and moved on. Really, I genuinely there wasn't too long of us, wallowing in it, to be honest. So yeah, we bounced. We're ready to bounce back.
Is that what they outlined to you as well? The ambition straight away that the main goal is to get, well, back to the Southern Prem next season?
No bones about it. We're not going in that league to just wallow in that league. We're going to go in there, and it won't be easy because there's Frome, Swindon, a drop down. Will want the same. There's a couple of teams spending quite heavily that were already in that league.
Hmm.
So we're by no means like, oh, look at the runaway absolute guaranteed promotion side. But the expectation is to be right up there, and that's we've been up there, and we've been up there in the past and banged on the door and got promoted. So why not again? That's my take really.
Brilliant stuff. And yeah, I wish you all the best next season with it. And Craig, Probably two of the hardest questions I normally ask on this podcast is where do you see the club in 5 years' time? But the harder one, which I see a lot of managers struggle on particularly, is where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
I think the club is a step 3 club with what's going on. I think we can get to step 3. I don't think it can ever really push beyond that. We will try to, but I think step 3 is probably its level, Winchester's. For me personally, I've got a good job. I don't see myself managing full time in football. I think I'm good enough to. I back myself. I definitely do. From a coaching perspective, I think I know the game and all that stuff. But everybody's got to be confident in their own ability. But I think,
Mm.
you know, probably at Winchester if they'd have me, I would have thought, or managing somewhere, certainly somewhere that that enables me to have a good work-life balance. Do whatever I can. I want to still be in football. I enjoy it. It's hard work, but somewhere where I can where I believe in the club. I believe in the support base. I like the place. Somewhere like that.
Is it now about trying to build that legacy then with Winchester? Obviously, you're close to a decade, I think it is, in charge now. So is it about leaving your legacy for the future of the club?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think whatever happens, they can never take away the fact that we've taken them as high as they've ever gone. We've gone as far as they've ever gone in the FA Cup, the FA Trophy. So there's stuff there, but I just think I certainly don't want to go out with us. I did think, this is time to move on, let someone else have a go, but I don't want to go out on that kind of leaving, deserting the ship sort of thing. So I want to make sure I leave them in a better place than I took it on. I think we are that. So let's see if I can really kick it back even further on, and then hand over the reins to someone else.
Exactly, Craig. And I think you'll do, all those good things with the club. Definitely a team to watch out for. But one thing I'm quite interested in seeing now, when I do upload this to YouTube, Spotify, it'd be great to see who's watching this, because I think we're going to have a real mix. Fleet Town fans, Winchester fans, Gosport fans. So it'd be great to see all of that side of things. To be honest, I could probably sit here for another hour chatting football with you, but I think it's probably time to bring this episode to an end. So for all those different fans watching out there this episode, what do you say to them just to round off this podcast?
I just want to say really that non-league football is a really special place. I think it's tainted by certain things that do go on. I think there's some idiots that I've said this before that think that they're in an episode of Football Factory and something like that, and it's ridiculous. Online trolls I think are a disdain, a disdain at them, and a stain on non-league football. All of that aside, avoiding all of that, there's some of the best relationships you can ever have in non-league football. There's some of the best people I've ever met in non-league football, through non-league football. Having support for your own team and having a banter with your opposition mates and stuff like that. So we're going to win, no, you're going to win, and singing songs at each other, all that stuff. Just keep doing that, because that's just what we live and die by as a country. We love that kind of banter piece, but please, I don't want to see any of the kind of trolling and the abuse that sort of happens, because I just think that ruins non-league football for me. And I'm not just saying to John, people like yourself and Matitude and people like that I come across that provide content and do it in a fun and a light-hearted way and enjoy it. That's the beauty of non-league football. And you don't get a chance to, as supporters, to kind of fraternise with professional footballers at Saints or Pompey or whatever. You don't get a chance to do that. So the non-league players that go into the bar, you can chat to them, you can have a laugh with them, and that sort of stuff. That's the beauty of non-league football. So I just want to keep always promoting that. If I ever see it, I'm not big on social media, like you said, but if I ever see it, I've done it to you. I've said, keep doing it, because I love it. It's nothing to do with me. You're not promoting me, but I just think lifeblood of non-league football is people like yourselves, and so keep doing that. I think it's amazing. So the clubs I've played for and managed, I've loved my time there. I've got my favourites there, obviously within those clubs, but I've loved my time at all of those places, and hopefully, I've at least tried my hardest wherever I've been, and that's hopefully what I'll be remembered for, whatever club I've been at.
Well, Craig, I couldn't have said it better myself there. And I think I have to make you a deal. If Winchester are to get promoted this season, I'll have to come down and try and make a vlog with you, because I think the fans are going to love this episode, hearing all your stories. It's been a pleasure to have you on. And make sure to like and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.